I'd spent the last couple of days in Dubrovnik, and this was after a lot of driving through both Montenegro and Bosnia into southern Croatia. I'd spent just over 24 hours in the touristic city, and its surroundings had been pretty successful for interior photography locations, some of which you'll see soon in my Croatia Overview video, which is coming next week. Today I'm bringing you my final Balkans location, for a while at least, and it's my first and only from this southern region. The week prior, I'd taken some much needed time off for a holiday, hoping to clear my mind and to find some inspiration for my next projects. As I wandered through the scenic streets and quiet corners of Montenegro, a place that I'd wanted to visit for some time with my wife, my thoughts were constantly racing, trying to come up with fresh projects and engaging ideas for future videos. It's funny how when you're supposed to be relaxing, the creative mind never really switches off. The holiday came to a close and I dropped off my wife in Sarajevo and continued to split alone. Being on the road solo can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it offers unparalleled freedom and the chance to explore at my own pace. But on the other hand, it can be a real battle to juggle multiple content types, especially when you're the one doing the filming, editing and narrating. Every new location brings a new mix of excitement but a pressure to produce high quality content that captures the essence of the place. This experience has reinforced a valuable lesson in my journey as a photographer: the importance of being selective. Hello everyone, welcome to the series conclusion, the finale from here in South Croatia. We're actually in the south now, but that wasn't even the plan, to be honest with you. I was going to conclude the series in Montenegro with a couple of videos, and I had some big plans for that. It's been, in real time, 2 and a bit weeks since last week's video. So for me, I went home for a week in Istanbul, well, 6 days, backed up my images, got the cameras clean, packed some shorts of course, and then I came on holiday with my wife back to this region. I actually took her to Montenegro for an entire week and we had a great time. The problem is during the period where I was away, a heat wave descended on the region. We're talking temperatures up to 38 degrees, but average 35 every day. Brutal heat where you can't really even think what you're doing with video photography, even drone photography. I was thinking some cool mornings would take over and we could conclude the videos, but it's going to have to wait now for a later date. The temperatures have come down just a little bit to enable me to kind of conclude the series here in the south of Croatia as I take the car back to Split tomorrow and get back to Istanbul for the summer. And that's kind of my spring, as it were, over. But today I've decided to bring you to this little church, this little chapel on the side of a farmhouse, to talk about being selective with your architecture and interior photography. The idea being, of course, that if you're selective, it'll help you with your editing, in particular your culling, and of course make your portfolio much, much better. I'm boiling, so I need to crack on, get shooting, and let's talk about these images as we do it. So, if we're going to be selective about our images, we need to kind of assess the scene, look around, think about what our composition is going to be. Now for me, I really like the colours in here. The green, the red, the blue. 3 colours. Very nice. That's the main thing. And to be honest with you, to photograph this off to one side, 2-point perspective, is probably not going to work too well. So I'm going to go to my usual go-to 1-point perspective, shoot in this chapel straight through the middle, and try and get a little bit of this foreground interest in here, which is of course really important. For this shot, I've decided to opt for, of course, my R5, but I've got the 24mm tilt shift on the front, and that's what I'm going to be using. So, of course, our camera's on the tripod. The thing is, though, is people do get a little bit hooked on the back of the LCD when they're shooting on a tripod. So my tip for this, to be a bit more selective, probably would be to rethink a bit more about your compositions. Maybe take your camera like this, off of your tripod, and walk about. Go forwards, go backwards, left to right, pick out compositions that you want. It can help you kind of frame things up nicely. Now I'm going to move forwards and backwards in the frame here, using that 24mm focal length, but I'm going to keep moving the lens up and down, like basically shifting it here on the barrel to kind of check my kind of composition throughout. I'm going to try and look to frame up something that I want. Now I know that I want a 1-point perspective, I just don't know where from, like how far forwards I want to be. Let's have a look. So as I move through the scene like so, I kind of like it from here where we've got less distracting elements in the foreground. The problem is when I'm that far forward is when I go to the top here, I am cutting off some of that ceiling detail up above. So actually, probably what it is that I'm going to look to do is actually, I'm still going to be selective here, but I'm going to get 2 1-point perspectives, one from further back and then one from further forward, showing the detail inside the altar there. So let's start with the wide one. Let's move back a bit to here, let's frame up and get that one in. So both of these pews will be in the foreground, and I'll try and position myself. Okay, so we know now roughly where our tripod needs to be. Now it's just going to be about making subtle adjustments. Now the first adjustment I'm going to do is I know that from here, because of where the pews are positioned, the seats, and because of the scene overall, and this nice little kind of, we've got a pattern on the wall where the sun's shining through the skylight above, I'm going to do a landscape orientation image. So for that, a camera needs to be in portrait mode on the top of the camera to make a panoramic. So middle, left and right is what we're looking to do. Now, this is the other problem I'm going to have is you, to get better images and to get selective images, need to come at the right time of day. Now, if I'm not careful, the sun's going to get lower, it's going to stream into this chapel and fill my floor full of horrible sunlight. So I want to get these images before it's too late. I've framed up, I've got my first shot in the bag. I'm actually then going to shift to the left and do the same thing. Now these are just bracketed, 3 brackets, 1 stop apart, F8, nice and simple. The light is already starting to appear in the bottom of my frame, so I have to be very careful. Now light can play havoc with our images, like it is here for me, but it can also be our friend too, of course. In photography, light is always our friend. If we came here in the autumn, earlier in the day, we would actually have lower sun in the sky and it would come in through these windows, a nice glow, and we'd probably be able to get some sort of nice light rays in this chapel too. So that would be an option for another time. So of course it goes without saying when we're doing this, we're also looking to highlight architectural details. There's no point just framing something up for the sake of it, shooting our camera up, down, without getting the key details in our shot. Especially for commercial work, but less so for personal, of course. Personal, you can kind of do what you want, but I would probably recommend getting the best possible shots by slowing down still. Thinking about your framing and your overall kind of, your vision for the scene. So when it comes to image orientation, it really is up to you, personal choice. Do you want it in landscape or portrait orientation? But I would urge you to explore the idea of actually, is there architectural elements you're going to exclude or include by doing it in a certain way? Now the thing is when I actually put my center column up, like so, and I shift this lens to the top, it doesn't get much of the blue in. In fact, it only just fits in frame. So I think it's time to pull out the big guns. Let's pull out the 17mm. So when it comes to slowing down, moving through the scene, of course, when I initially did that, I had the 24mm lens on, and I was walking through here and checking 24mm focal length, closer, further back, and even further back still. When I put the 17mm on, things change. Okay, now of course, this isn't going to change our perspective. That's all to do with our position, but it's just give me more width and fill in the frame less, essentially, with this lens. Now, it's the same as before, really. It's just a case of fine-tuning, taking our time, making sure we're happy with the final position, and really, our camera is also getting an overheating warning. I told you this is really hot. Camera's overheating, nuts. Which one do you think works? Let me know down in the description below. So I mentioned earlier that actually being selective like this can help your post-processing, and that is definitely true. For example, it can really help you with your culling. It can give you less images to go through, less images to pull together, less panos to create if you're doing so. And if you're using a program like Lightroom or another software program to cull those images, look through the images and select which ones you're going to bin and which ones are going to be the keepers, which ones you're going to edit, then of course that process is much easier if you've got less files. So I'm not saying that every location is one or two compositions. Actually, it just depends on the scene and the location that you're at. I recently photographed a chapel here actually in Croatia, in the Balkans, and you can check out that video linked above. There I had many externals, all of them worked. One of them I even liked as a kind of like brochure image for a holiday company, car driving past the chapel, rural Croatia, explore Croatia. You could just imagine it across the image. But then there was also the internal image too, to accompany it. So in total there was probably 5 nice compositions from that location, and that was what was right for that space. And here, probably it is just the 2. In fact, if you were going to go one step further with this location, you would probably turn your eye towards that farmhouse next door. So if I had my extender on the front here, what I'd actually have is I'd have a really nice 35mm roughly focal length, and that would be perfect. In fact, that's exactly what this needs, and that would give me the kind of, I don't know, the look and feel that I'm kind of looking at here. What I can do is I can activate my crop in camera, my 1.6 crop. So that's what I've done. That just then takes a segment of my R5, pulls this focal length a little bit closer, gives me a little bit of a zoom, a bit of reach. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Focusing, of course, on the front palm tree, shifting the lens just a tiny fraction up to include all of the palm on the left-hand side. So I want it all in my frame, like all through the frame. I'm focusing, 3 brackets. Weirdly, annoyingly, I've still got my 10-second timer on, but that is going to give me the results that I crave. Okay then, so that's pretty much me for this week. Thank you very much for your engagement, your comments, your likes on this series so far. Where are we going to next? You'll have to wait and see. If you've got any comments, leave them below. Until next time, thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you all very, very soon.